What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 11 Studs and Duds NFL Recap. Before we hop in, I want to remind you, please do hit that like button. I also want to remind people and let the newcomers know what this series is all about. So this is a comprehensive recap of the week before, going through the best and worst players of the week, whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling, who's contributing to wins or leading to losses. We're really diving deep into all the players here, despite what ESPN and SportsCenter and NFL Network might lead you to believe. There are actually more players in the NFL than just Lamar Jackson. So this video is going to be talking about those players. While we do that, you will be seeing my own Madden custom roster ratings changes from this week's update. So these ratings obviously accurately reflect how I perceive these guys in real life. If you don't care about Madden, you're here for football, have no worries. This is all football talk here, no Madden. So we're going to get into it here. I will say, if you guys enjoy the Madden custom roster, this is a free service to you guys. If you think it adds value to your Madden experience, the weekly update is a big commitment by me. And really, this video is the only small bit of compensation I get for that. So if you enjoy the roster and you want to show your support for it to ensure the continuity of it moving forward, you can either do that in the PayPal link I dropped below or through Patreon, patreon.com/thatfranchiseguy, where you'll also get some film breakdowns on quarterbacks every week. So definitely consider that if you want to show your support. And again, hit that like button on this video and tell your friends about the show. All right, let's get into it here, starting with the star of the week. And there actually wasn't a major standout star here. I wanted to go with Matt Ryan, who to me is actually playing the best football of his career. And it's going to surprise some people because most people, well, I'm not going to say most people. Most of you guys are pretty smart NFL fans, but a lot of people just look at the win-loss record. They see Matt Ryan's actually having one of the worst years of his career. Well, actually, by the eye test, he's moving in the pocket better, extending plays better than he ever has. He's seeing the field very well. I actually think he's been very accurate. Just isn't working out in the win column for him. But I wanted to give Matt Ryan some credit, even though this isn't his season. I think he's playing really well, and he's kind of got that Falcons team with some energy again. And then the dud of the week. Now, we've got some major quarterback duds this week. Actually, 3 big-name quarterbacks are going to be plummeting in the ratings throughout this video, so I couldn't really pick one of those. But one guy that is another star that has really been a dud this year is Damon Harrison, nose tackle for the Detroit Lions. And dud is a harsh word. He's still a very good run defender. He's still one of the better nose tackles in the game. But where we had him rated to start the year was as a just absolute cut above elite run defending, unblockable force. That has not been him this season. And the drop in basically any kind of stat or category or eye test, it's all there. But just to give you some numbers here, he's on pace now for 33 tackles this year. He's been around 50 for the last 6 years. Now, that can be a little fluky, but that's just one number. He is on pace for 22 defensive stops, which is, I believe, a tackle or contributing to a tackle due to a good block shed of within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. 22 stops this year, not terrible, but he had 51 last year, which led the NFL. And then he also has 6 missed tackles. He only missed 1 tackle last year. So, just a lot of drop-off for him. He is 30 years old, and then he also has a PFF run defense grade of 70 this year as opposed to 93.8. So a big drop-off for the stud nose tackle. No longer the clear-cut best run defender in the NFL. And then we also are going to have a Dave Gettleman Award this week. This is the weekly award to poke fun at Dave Gettleman's 1970s team building philosophy of loading up on run defense, defensive tackles, and investing a lot in them. The fact of the matter is there's about 100 players, if not more, across the league that step up every week and dominate the run and do it pretty consistently. So this week, the out of nowhere run defense leader was Josh Tupou of the Cincinnati Bengals. Really dominated that really good Oakland Raiders offensive line. kept Josh Jacobs in check. Actually was a big part of why the Bengals were in that game for the most part. So Josh Tupou, the Bengals do a good job developing these cheap interior defensive linemen. They don't do a lot of things well, but on that defensive line, they do have some good development and strategy with these guys. So good for Josh Tupou, getting a good boost this week. All right, into the games, starting with the Steelers-Browns game. And actually no drop for Mason Rudolph despite being miserable this week. I already have him rated pretty low. I did want to mention that though. But Tyson Alualu, +2, 71 to a 73. Definitely a Dave Gettleman candidate there, as this team picked up the former first-round pick pretty cheap. He might have a average contract, but anyway, he's playing well as that fourth guy in that rotation. It's a really good D-line for Pittsburgh. Linebacker Vince Williams having one of his best years, probably actually his best year of his career. He's okay in coverage. I think it's a good thing to have Devin Bush in there as far as covering the mismatch problems out of the backfield, tight ends and stuff, but he's been a heat-seeking missile as far as run defense goes, and he's a veteran presence in the middle of that defense that is probably a really nice compliment to Devin Bush, who is a really athletic young rookie. And then you got Terrell Edmonds. He's been a much better player since the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade. I think, honestly, Terrell Edmonds was a big reason the Steelers felt that they needed to make that Fitzpatrick trade, because early in the year they were playing Edmonds at free safety, center field, and it was awful. He couldn't tackle in space. He had no instincts as far as breaking on balls. His range was terrible. Now, the safety, who's built more like a linebacker, can come into the box, play pretty much exclusively strong safety, and at least maximize on his strengths, which is pursuit, tackling, having that size to bring down some of these bigger body guys closer to the line of scrimmage. This was not a good pick in the first round, but at least they have him playing where he should be playing, so he's going to go up a little bit. And then flipping over to the Browns, it's going to be KhaDarel Hodge going up +2. The Browns are scrambling to find playmakers at wide receiver, and you would think Odell Beckham could step up, but it really hasn't been him. KhaDarel Hodge, a good game this week, 64 to 66. We'll see if there's anything there. I don't know. Interior defensive lineman Sheldon Richardson, we mentioned him last week. He is coming on in the second half of his season here. Started really slow, but the pressure rate up, playing better run defense. He is kind of paying back dividends for a decent contract they give him. I think it was just a one-year deal, though. So a good sign in there for the Browns for sure. And then safety Justin Burris has been getting a lot of playing time here. Demarius Randall's been in and out of the lineup, but now Burris has kind of come into a third safety rotational role, and he's been playing at a decent level, so he's going to go up 363 to a 66. All right, on to Denver at Minnesota. A lot of movement for Denver this week. Andrew Beck, he's going to go up +1. He got some decent playing time. I believe he's actually the fullback that comes in as well now that Andy Janovich has suffered a pretty gruesome arm injury. But he gets on the field, does some run blocking, does some interesting mismatch stuff out of the backfield. Then you got Courtland Sutton. Has been a top 10 wide receiver this year pretty clearly, and to do it with the quarterback situation they've had in Denver has been incredible. He's got the contested catch likelihood, I guess, and can run good routes as a bigger-bodied guy. Coming out, he was my #1 wide receiver in that class. He has played the best wide receiver in that class, and he's done it with not many good quarterbacks. So good for him. My comp for him was Allen Robinson, and he's been just almost identical to that as far as what Allen Robinson's career has been. And then at center, Connor McGovern having a good season there. He's going to go up +2. Interior defensive lineman Shelby Harris. He needs some recognition here. He could have been a star of the week candidate as well. He's a very versatile interior defensive lineman. He's a little undersized, a smaller school guy, just has never really been recognized as, frankly, one of the better interior defensive linemen in the sport, and that's what he is. He's awesome in run defense. Last year was one of the best run defense grades by PFF in the league, but it's been the pass rushing a little better this year. Just a really solid player. The D-line there in Denver playing pretty well. So 77 to a 79. Mike Purcell as well. He is another Dave Gettleman candidate here, but he's been heating up. A free agent off the street pickup for them, so +2, 70 to a 72. And then Alexander Johnson, he's been one of the breakout superstars of the entire season. 27-year-old second-year player, had off-the-field issues as a former 5-star linebacker coming out of Tennessee, but finally reaching that potential. He's been a top linebacker in the NFL this year. I think he's a little better as like a box, stuffer, your typical stack, shed, pursuit, all that. He's got, to me, some stiffness in space. I think that he's probably playing at his peak, which he's playing like one of the best linebackers in the NFL, so don't take that the wrong way. I'm just saying I don't think he's ever going to be Bobby Wagner, Luke Kuechly, Deion Jones as far as his coverage is concerned. I think Benardrick McKinney for the Texans could be a decent comparison for Alexander Johnson as that really good straight line speed, decent cover skills, length, size, all that stuff. Just maybe not the quickness you look for to match up with maybe a George Kittle or Christian McCaffrey, or obviously a lot of linebackers are going to struggle with that. You get the point. I think he's got a certain cap as far as his coverage abilities go, but still, awesome find for Denver and looking like a future star linebacker here in Alexander Johnson. All right, on to the Vikings side. Kirk Cousins is going to get a boost this week. He's just been playing really good quarterback the last month of the season, and he's done it kind of proving some of his criticisms wrong, going on the road, beating a good Dallas team, putting up a bunch of points, being the reason they were able to win that game. Well, him and Dalvin Cook playing like an MVP in that game. But then also this week, a big criticism of Kirk Cousins, say that 5 times fast, is that he hasn't been able to come back. He's good playing with the lead, but a guy that if he falls behind, he can kind of get in shootouts, but he's just not that consistent elite fourth quarter comeback kind of guy, and he showed that this week against a decent Denver Broncos defense. So proving some of his criticisms wrong. Kirk Cousins going to go up plus 177 to a 78. Then we've got Danielle Hunter on the edge. He officially needs to be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. The gap between him and the next guy down, who also happens to be on his team, by the way, Everson Griffin, who I've said is the comeback player of the year, but 71 pressures this year. The next 2 down are Everson Griffin and Zadarius Smith at 58 and 57. So the gap between Danielle Hunter and the next guy down as far as the edge is concerned, it's remarkably large. So he's having an outstanding season. He's emerged as a top 3 to 5 edge player, to be certain. And then you got Jaron Kearse. This guy has worn a lot of different hats for this Vikings team. He's played slot corner, he's played free safety, strong safety, you name it. But a really good game this week. It was no Anthony Harris here, so it was Kearse, Sendejo, Harrison Smith, but Kearse, just when he gets on the field, he plays well. It's as simple as that. He's developed so well as a 7th round pick. Zimmer has really taken this guy under his wing and crafted, I'm not even going to say crafted a role for him because he wears so many different hats, but clearly has a very good connection with what Kearse does well and has allowed him to really develop as a player. All right, Atlanta at Carolina. Not a ton of movement here. We had Matt Ryan there moving up +1. Then Adrian Claybourne, you got to boost him up. I mean, he's not going to keep playing this well because this has kind of been Claybourne throughout his career. He'll have a few big weeks here and there and then just kind of disappear. I have a pretty strong belief that at this stage in his career, he's not going to all of a sudden maintain playing like Khalil Mack, which he's doing. But you got to give him credit, man. He has been a beast and has been the #1 reason, in my opinion, amidst other factors. But this Falcons defense over the last 2 weeks has been playing like one of the best in the league. And Adrian Claybourne playing like Khalil Mack has been a big part of that. And then DeMonte Kazee is not moving this week. He had a great season last year as a under-the-radar free safety that came in. And he's been asked to play slot corner this year due to some injuries and also just Keanu Neal coming back. But he's now been pushed back to free safety and is playing pretty well. So just noting that, he was a breakout last year, was rated high coming into the year, hasn't been the best, but a guy that showed some pretty high upside last year, so he might keep going up in the future. Then we got Kendall Sheffield, intriguing prospect. He was kind of, if you're a big draft geek and a big NFL fan, he's kind of the mid-round pick that you just wanted your team to take a chance on because you had a good feeling he's going to work out because he's coming from Ohio State, a top prospect, has dealt with injuries, but just kind of that raw speed corner that has the profile of a true #1. And he's had his ups and downs, as do every nickel or every rookie corner, but he's had a lot of great games. This was another one. He's looking like, at worst, a number 2 kind of guy, maybe kind of like Eli Apple for the Saints, but he could be even better than that. They seem to have found a really good corner there in Kendall Sheffield, and I'm sure he'll continue to have his ups and downs, but definitely stock up for Kendall Sheffield. And then left tackle Greg Little, as we switch over to the Panthers side here. He's had some good games here, also dealing with injuries here, but he got embarrassed in this game by Adrian Claybourne. Was definitely raw coming out and had criticisms as far as his technique and attention to detail, and Adrian Claybourne going to work on him, basically able to do whatever he wanted to Greg Little. Definitely a concern, so we're going to have to go stock down on Greg Little a little bit. -167 to a 66. This Panthers offensive line has struggled a lot in the last 2 weeks. All right, Dallas at Detroit. So much movement in this one, so we're going to get right into it. Tony Pollard, I've joked about Dallas finally playing their best running back ahead of Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, look, Zeke's a really good player. He's very good at what he does. Tony Pollard is simply the more versatile running back. He can do, honestly, almost everything Zeke does between the tackles. He's not as good at falling forward every single time he gets touched, which is Zeke's best trait. But he can kick it outside. He, at this point, is more explosive than Zeke, a better home run threat, but it's what he does as a receiver that really stands out about Tony Pollard, a good route runner. This is what he did in college because he was playing behind Darrell Henderson, who was a all-star in college. So definitely a sleeper pick here for Tony Pollard, but Dallas has just got to keep giving him the ball. I mean, he grades out significantly better than Zeke in pretty much any type of metric you want to look, other than maybe like, is it 4th and 1 and can he fall forward for a yard? And then the receivers that went up last week are going to stay hot here. Michael Gallup, Randall Cobb. Gallup is a really intriguing player. I loved him coming out. My comp for him was Stephon Diggs, and he's every bit been that here in his second year. Diggs has struggled with drops in his career. Michael Gallup has like 8 drops this year, but you also see the amazing ability to have balance through contact as he's going up for catches, the focus on contested catches. He's got run after the catch ability. He's the ideal athlete. You know, this wide receiver core is probably the active #1 receiving core in the NFL as far as how well these guys are playing. Then you got Randall Cobb. He's really hot and healthy out here. That's basically all it is. Health has been the question for Randall Cobb in his career. The Cowboys, quite frankly, are getting kind of lucky that Cobb is staying healthy all year, but he's reminding people that when he's 100%, he's a damn good slot wide receiver. Then Blake Jarwin is emerging. He's got some good straight line speed. He's blocking, contributing in the run game. I will say that I was not high on Jason Witten by any stretch of the imagination, but he's been about as uninspiring as you would have imagined. Then you got Dak Prescott. He's going up. He's hot. He's been really impressive. I've talked about how he's kind of taking a step up as far as having that big play ability. He's looking vertical more often. He's utilizing his mobility more than he ever has, and he's throwing the ball more accurately down the field. So he's really doing everything you'd want to see if you want to see Dak emerge as an actual, you know, borderline elite franchise quarterback. He's played pretty close to like Deshaun Watson these last 2 weeks, so he's been really impressive. And then Lyle Collins +1 was just an outstanding steal for this team. He had some kind of pre-draft issue, fell to becoming an undrafted free agent, and then of course Dallas, an appealing place for Lyle Collins to go and sign. He had plenty of offers, but he comes here to Dallas and he's turning into a superstar tackle. And then they finally got some good guard play this week. Xavier Su'a-Filo, he's a veteran that's been around here. He's now healthy, or at least has won that left guard job out from the youth that was playing at left guard and not playing well, but just a rock at left guard this week against a pretty terrible pass rush of Detroit, but still definitely monitoring Xavier Su'a-Filo. If they round out that left guard position, this could get back to that 2016 all-time great offensive line, now paired with a better version of Dak. This offense can get really scary. And then this defense has a lot more talent as well. So Dallas is kind of on the fringe to me of like emerging as one of those powerhouse teams. They just kind of haven't been able to put it all together not just within one game, but for multiple weeks. They seem to kind of lose a little bit of momentum in some parts of their team every few weeks. And then for Detroit, oh my God, so much movement here. A lot of no names. Marvin Hall, deep threat, seems to catch a 45-yard pass every week. He's going up +1. Bo Scarborough, a lot of people familiar with him, was that beast top-end prospect out of Alabama, a Heisman candidate running back there, basically mirror image of Derrick Henry, just didn't have the good 40 time. Clearly not as explosive as Derrick Henry, but does have some of the same things with Derrick Henry, where he's kind of that slow starter at that huge size. So he finally gets an opportunity here. I was surprised that hasn't been a number 2 running back somewhere already in his career. Like, I did like him coming out as like a 3rd to a 5th round pick, like as a kind of surefire power back, kind of like a LeGarrette Blount type here. So +364 to a 67. I am interested to see, like, does he kind of cement himself as the, not gonna say number 1 back here, because you're obviously gonna get Kerryon Johnson back, but Bo Scarborough definitely an interesting guy who can be that goal line bruiser, the guy that can eat up carries at the end of games and stuff like that, maybe help keep Kerryon Johnson healthy, because that has been a concern for him. Then you got Frank Ragnow. That's looking like an excellent pick, 1st round pick from last year, moving over to center this year, played guard last year, but clearly just much more comfortable at center. Been one of the best centers in the NFL this year by PFF. Jeff Driscoll getting a boost this week. Nothing crazy. He kind of is what he is. I've seen people say this, that he is kind of off-brand Josh Allen. I think that's perfect. He's a gunslinger mentality. He's got the athleticism to break the pocket. He made some starts for the Bengals last year and played okay. He's just a good backup to have, especially in an offense like this that is kind of used to coming out and just slinging it around and seeing what happens. So Jeff Driscoll +356 to a 59. Jarrad Davis had been lowered a couple weeks ago. He's followed that up with some huge bounce back run defense weeks. I still think he's got a lot of flaws in his game, but he's bounced back a good bit. And then you got Rashaan Melvin. He's going to go down. The secondary here outside of I almost said Glover Quinn. He's long gone. Outside of Darius Slay has been a major concern. Rashaan Melvin has been offense's go-to target here. We had Damon Harrison falling, and then Jelani Tavai is hot, +167 to a 68, kind of a do-it-all, quote-unquote oversized linebacker, but he's got good instincts, kind of that see-ball, hit-ball mentality, and then he's got some length and decent range and coverage as well. Looking like a pretty decent mid-round selection there for the Lions. All right, the 5th game of the week here, Buffalo at the Miami Dolphins, starting with the Bills. John Brown, one of the better signings of the offseason, would probably be in a top 10 list. A perfect fit here with Josh Allen. There was a play that kind of broke down. Allen kind of stepped up, looked like he might scramble, but he just saw John Brown streaking open. It looked maybe like a cover 2, and he was slipping behind the flat zone on that side, and he just saw John Brown, and just little flip of the wrist, and it's there on a dart. Like, he's just a good combo as that deep threat. He's overcome a lot of the questions about his game as far as his hands and making more tough contested catches. He's made some nice catches this year. He's been improved as a route runner, staying healthy. Just a great signing for the Bills. And then Dawson Knox is a great pick. Was underutilized at Ole Miss, but they've now made him pretty much their number 1 tight end. They get other guys involved here as well, but he's got the run after catch ability you look for. He showed that in flashes at Ole Miss, and just that mismatch problem as a 4.5 40 kind of guy. So they're doing a good job with him, and he's blocking really well. Not going up this week, but Ed Oliver, we lowered him last week. I'm a big Ed Oliver fan, so good to see him have one of his best games of the year. And then Kevin Johnson, another good signing for this team. He was cut by the Texans, a former 1st-round pick. They don't need to lean on him, and if they had to, it would probably show some of those weaknesses yet again, but he's played a little bit in spurts here. Different positions too, slot corner, outside corner, but a good 4th corner to have, and he's having a pretty decent year there. So +268 to a 70. Then on the Dolphins side, again, just kind of nobody's but Patrick Laird, receiving back out of California. He's getting involved in the receiving game because they don't have any running backs to throw the ball to right now. Kalen Ballage has been a huge disappointment. I know that the blocking hasn't been great here in Miami, and that's why you might still hold out a little bit of hope. I liked Ballage coming out. Kind of a freak athlete, just an exciting player at Arizona State, but hasn't been able to get anything going here. They're just kind of running him into the dirt. He had like 13 carries for like 18 yards or something ridiculously bad, and he's been bad all year. Then on this defense, Nick Needham, I've said, is a big just optimism spot for this Dolphins team. To find a corner playing like he has at a borderline elite level the last 2 weeks. Now, you're not going to lock that in that he's some elite corner, but, I mean, at worst, you head into next year and he's your number 2 corner next to Xavier Howard. In a lost season like this for Miami, you hope to find guys like this, an undrafted free agent who's looking like a potential starter for this team moving forward. As for Sam Eguavoen, he's going to go up here. He's getting a ton of snaps, and he's had some decent games. He's also had some pretty bad games as well. So just kind of a lowly linebacker there getting a boost. I don't think he's a part of the future here, but he's some depth at least. And then Jacksonville at Indianapolis. A lot of movement in this game for Jacksonville. These wide receivers have been flying all over the place this year as far as the ratings are concerned. So Keelan Cole, he is rejuvenated here. He had a undrafted rookie breakout year 2 years ago, was looking like a future star, then fell off the face of the planet Earth last year, and now he's back after a bunch of injuries here. So plus 169 to a 70, kind of feels like a career wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, maybe bounces around the league a little bit, but he can play. Then you got DJ Chark. You know, this is one of my, terrible draft takes. Every scout's going to miss. I didn't think he had the contested catch ability that he has shown this year. He has been one of the best receivers as far as contested catches are concerned. So for whatever reason, he's tracking the ball well, adjusting his body well, and just good arm fighting and seeing the ball in. We knew he was fast and could get open, but to see that really makes you think he's got the upside of a true number 1 wide receiver. So good for DJ Chark, proving me wrong. Love to see it. And then Cam Robinson, minus 168 to a 67. He's just kind of a tackle. He's had some pretty bad games this year. Really got worked this week. He's going down 68 to a 67. I have a note on Josh Oliver. I had a tweet today about him. 3rd round tight end here. Has graded out terrible by PFF. They've tried to get him involved. I said at the time of the draft, this was one of the worst picks in the entire draft. I thought he was soft coming out of, San Jose State. Yeah, he ran like a 4.6, 4.40, but that didn't show on tape at all, in my opinion. And they passed on guys in Foster Moreau, Dawson Knox. I'm pretty sure Jay Sternberger was still there when they made that pick. So I thought that was a terrible pick when they made it. He has not played well as a rookie, and I'm not saying that he can't do what DJ Chark did here and prove me wrong and bounce back and develop. But I thought that was always a bad pick, and he's clearly nothing more than a project here. And they needed tight end help right away. So they would love to have Dawson Knox or Foster Moreau in there for sure. Safety Gerard Wilson, he's going to go up. They've needed some people to step up at safety because their 2 starters from last year departed. So Gerard Wilson playing a little strong, a little free, but he's having a good year. And then Miles Jack's been really disappointing. I thought he was going to take a step up this year. They lose Jalen Ramsey to help in coverage. They lose Telvin Smith to help in coverage. They're leaning on him a little bit too much now, probably. I still think he's a good player. I still think the contract they gave him is completely worth it. I still think that he's going to stay as a very good linebacker, but you do got to acknowledge that he has just been targeted. He's struggling in run defense. It's just not been a good year for Miles Jack. This defense just lacks star power. I said it in the power rankings this week. With Ramsey gone, with now Calais Campbell playing at a much lower level than he was to start the year, and of course with Telvin Smith gone, this defense is very lackluster and average, to be honest. So then for the Colts, ton of movement. This team has gotten as much movement as anyone this year. Nothing different this week. So Jacoby Brissett plus 2, 66 to a 68. Huge game for Jacoby on Thursday night. He could be due for a huge boost this week. I almost wanted to raise him up more. I don't know if I'm just late to the party here. That just might be the case. He really impressed me against the Jags. The play extension, I still think his processor may be a little slow, but his accuracy is good. He's got a great surrounding situation here, but he's doing it with a bunch of no-names at wide receiver. So I've been impressed by Jacoby Brissett. Could be due for a huge boost next week. Quentin Nelson, don't need to explain this. He's probably the best lineman in the NFL this year. Jonathan Williams coming out of left field here with a dominant performance at running back. Just goes to show you why you don't draft running backs early, because you can get Jonathan Williams in here. You get him a good design screen game. You get him some good blocking, and he can come out and get 100 yards of offense and dominate. So plus 758 to a 65. And then Marlin Mac, he's dealing with some injuries here, but he's just been so impressive this year. This is another player I was wrong about. I saw him as a, number 2 running back, a good pair of hands out of the backfield, but his patient running style, he seems to have gotten quicker in short areas as well. He's got some power. Like, he really is a really good running back. So plus 179 to an 80. Eric Ebron's going to go up 1 this year. He is what he is as a receiver. We know he's a mismatch problem, can get open. It's just a matter of, is he going to catch the open passes, because he does have drop issues, and that hasn't changed this year. But his blocking has been the best of his career here. Something he's clearly worked on, or maybe he's just being helped by how good the blocking is around him. But plus 174 to a 75, much better block ratings now. Wide receiver Marcus Johnson, plus 265 to a 67. He's getting an opportunity here. This Colts team is taking a very similar approach to what the Seattle Seahawks do, and that is, if you practice hard and you're physical, you're going to get some playing time, and that's what's happened here with Marcus Johnson. Ironically, this is the player that the Seahawks acquired for the Michael Bennett trade 2 years ago. Never worked out in Seattle, but he's getting opportunities here. He's run blocking well, which is what this team wants from these receivers, as has been evidenced by Zach Pascal, who's been one of the most impressive run blocking receivers I've ever watched. And then switching over to the defensive side of the ball, Bobby Okereke out of Stanford. Freak athlete, was definitely raw coming out of Stanford. He looked on tape coming out like a little slow to kind of get to the ball. Kind of wondered, a guy at his size, 6'1", 240, a bit of a bigger bodied guy, how he was going to be in coverage at the next level when his run defense wasn't very good. And it's not that he's been all that good as a run defending linebacker, but this Colts team is a smart team. They understand that coverage is what matters. They clearly saw something in Okereke's coverage ability that I didn't see at Stanford, and he's been awesome in coverage. He picked off a 2-point conversion this week, took it to the house, but it hasn't just been that. So he's going up plus 268 to a 70. Definitely an emerging linebacker here. This trio of linebackers is really good. Then Justin Houston. This signing was such a good move by this super smart front office. The Chiefs, I think, kind of blundered that whole situation with D Ford, Frank Clark, and Justin Houston here. They could have had Ford and Houston pretty easily. Instead, they ended up with just Frank Clark and not a first-round pick. But anyway, the Colts here, Justin Houston's been awesome. He's been one of the top edge rushers in the entire league this year, plus 283 to an 85. Definitely a star of the week candidate. And him playing like this increases the upside of this defense, along with these 2 rookie corners who have been outstanding the last few weeks. So you got Rocky Sin. A lot of people liked him coming out. I was a little bit lower, but I did say that if he goes anywhere, it's got to be one of these press cover 3 Seattle schemes, because he is not the best man-to-man guy. But, God, he has great instincts in zone. When he can look at the quarterback all game, kind of press and keep everything in front of him, he can break on the ball. He's really physical. So this has been a perfect fit. And then also Marvell Tell, who was a safety at USC, but I even had in my notes that he might be better as a cover 3 press man corner. So a great scheme fit for these 2 guys. But this whole unit clicks much better when you have a guy in Justin Houston who can get after the quarterback. So you have guys in Marvell Tell and Rocky Sin who might not have the best short area ability to stay with guys in man coverage or on reaction routes. But if they can press these guys and then keep their eye on the quarterback, who's going to have to force some things because he's under more pressure thanks to Justin Houston, it just ups the entire upside of this entire defense, in my opinion, to be able to go against a Patrick Mahomes or a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers and be able to fluster some of those guys. So just more and more positivity for this Colts team. Let's keep moving. Houston at Baltimore. Actually, no movement for Houston. Definitely looked into Deshaun Watson. To me, it's a guy that's proved that he'll bounce back, and I fully expect him to, but he was bad this week. Make no mistake about it. And then for Baltimore, Lamar's just going to go up again. Only 22 pass attempts again or whatever, but continuing to put the accuracy concerns to bed more and more every week. And then you got Mark Andrews going up and Orlando Brown going up. That rookie class, I just want to say, because Josh Jacobs tweeted out this week, like, name a better rookie class, I'll wait, or whatever he said. It's like, come on, man. Like, there's much better rookie classes this year, but just look at last year. This rookie class here, Lamar Jackson is a total steal at 32. Could very well end up being the best quarterback out of that entire class. Then it certainly has been this year. Then you got Mark Andrews, a total steal in the 3rd round. He's making a case for being the best tight end in the NFL right now, behind George Kittle, who's clear-cut #1. Then you got Orlando Brown, another 3rd round pick. All those 3 guys fell for whatever reason, and they've all been incredible. So that rookie class blows whatever is going on in Oakland, where Clelin Ferrell can only get 1 pressure against whoever he's going up for the Bengals offensive line. Then you got Patrick Ricard going up plus 175 to a 76. Fullback and defensive line ability is there, but he's a player for them. Jets at the Washington Redskins. Some no-name tight ends here for the Jets getting involved in this passing game really out of nowhere, but Ryan Griffin, a veteran, but he was a beast this week in the receiving game, plus 365 to a 68. Daniel Brown's an interesting player, plus 264 to a 66. He was on the Bears roster for, I think, 2 years and really couldn't solidify himself. But a freak athlete, a converted receiver coming out of like George Madison, or James Madison, not George Madison. But he had a really nice play this week where the pocket broke down, Darnold slipped out to the left, and it looked like Darnold was just going to scramble it for about 2 or 3 yards. But Brown saw the open space on the defense and sprinted to the end zone, and Darnold with a nice flip of the wrist, throw on the move. It was just a really nice executed play. It frankly showed me flashes of like Rodgers to Jordy Nelson back in the day on kind of a good reactionary route after the play. Sam Darnold, did think about him. He was so bad for 2 weeks. It's hard to just ignore that now, but has been significantly better these last 2 weeks, showing that upside yet again. So he's been kind of teasing us on and off all year. He's had some really good games and some really bad games. Not going to move him this week. It was the Giants last week. It was the Redskins this week. You should play pretty well against those teams. So then we got Jameson Crowder, plus 175 to a 76. Has been the most stable pass catcher on this team by a country mile. Just been there 3 weeks now. Really good performance. So plus 175 to a 76. Good revenge game here for Jameson this week. And then Demaryius Thomas. You know who could actually use Demaryius Thomas is the New England Patriots. Thomas is looking definitely not like his old self, but he just looks like a starting caliber wide receiver out there. A versatile, big-bodied guy, can kind of do a little bit of everything. Good blocker. So plus 174 to a 75. Then you got Bleswan Austin, plus 365 to a 68. We talked about him last week, so he's hot now. He was on my sleeper list for the draft simply because of his physical profile. He's in that kind of diamond range of corners, 6'1", 195. That's true #1, just typecasting right there as a physical profile. But a good athlete who did have a good junior season at Rutgers. Disappeared his senior year, but now coming in here, a late round pick, or was he? I think it was like a 6th or 7th round pick. A good pick by this Jets team. Now their season's done here, but to find a potential #1 corner at that point in the draft, obviously a big steal. So we'll continue to monitor him as the season goes on. And then Jamal Adams, his overall is going to stay the same if you're worried about the Madden stuff, but a boost to his pass rushing skill set this week. He actually lined up as a legitimate 3-4 outside linebacker a bunch of times this week and came up with 4 pressures and 3 sacks. Like, he looked like Von Miller lining up as a legit 3-4 outside linebacker multiple times this week. So just more versatility being added to Jamal Adams' game. And then for the Redskins, Terry McLaurin. I mean, if you can overcome everything that's going on here and still play like a top wide receiver in the NFL, you're a damn good player. So he's going to go up 74 to a 75. I looked into Dwayne Haskins. Not going to move him. He showed some nice things, showed some bad things. It's just such a mess here. It's hard to get a beat on Dwayne Haskins. And then Montez Sweat, he's been pretty much as bad as I thought he was going to be at the next level. Now, if he would have gone to a Seattle like I had mocked, or maybe a New England, or, you know, one of these good cultures that could kind of get the most out of him, because my question for him coming out was work ethic. And to put him in this situation, which is probably the most toxic locker room in the entire NFL right now, there's no surprise that he's like been a completely irrelevant factor for this defense. They traded up multiple picks to go get him. I have a lot of concerns about Montez Sweat and what he's going to bring to this team moving forward. All right, New Orleans at Tampa Bay. Not a lot of surprises in this game. One note, Nick Easton made the start at left guard. I can only assume that that is the benching of Andrews Pete. Maybe Pete is hurt, but Pete has been the weak link for that offensive line for years. Do they finally make this change? Does this actually make this an elite, full-rounded offensive line? Because they say you're only as good as your weakest link a lot of times on the offensive line, and they're loaded everywhere else except for Andrews Pete. So could Nick Easton be solidifying this group and really helping out this offense moving forward? We'll see. And then Patrick Robinson, we've been kind of wondering where he's been because he is technically healthy. If you think back 2 years ago, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, he was a major impact as a nickel corner for them. The Saints wanted a little bit of that action. They signed him to a pretty hefty contract last offseason, and then he went down for the year with injuries. So he comes back this year and really didn't play for the first 2 months of the year, but now they've found a role for him as kind of a dime linebacker. He actually played a lot of just like outside linebacker this week as a rotational guy. So he's still rated pretty high. He's not going to change at all, but he did play well this week, and it's definitely a boost for this defense to get a good player in Patrick Robinson back potentially. Eli Apple is going to go up, plus 176 to a 77. Kind of your typical contract year, surrounded by a lot of talent. He's having a really good year. I could see him being kind of a big free agent signing that honestly might even flop a little bit because I don't necessarily believe in Eli Apple's a number one corner. I think this is the ideal situation here where you're playing behind a top end pass rush as the number two corner, not dealing with other teams' number one guys because Marshawn Lattimore is one of the best in the game. You got a good free safety behind you in Marcus Williams. Good's an understatement. Marcus Williams has been incredible. He had a pick this week that was really nice. So, you know, good year for Eli Apple. We'll give him some credit, but I do think he has potential to be kind of an overpaid free agent because he is having that good of a year. And then for the Tampa Bay Bucks, Scott Miller +2. What was he, a 7th round pick? He's 5'9", white dude, but he's a burner. He's not your typical slot guy. He's going to be lined up on the outside. They've been playing him more instead of Brashad Perriman, who's that deep threat as well. So he's going to go up +2, 63 to a 65. That's all the movement for the Bucks. I do have a note. Devin White was targeted 11 times this week. The Saints saw that as a player they could go after, and they got away with it. So he's not having the rookie year that most expected for in a linebacker prospect that was considered elite. Has not lived up to the hype. Then we got Arizona at the San Francisco 49ers. Kyler Murray is going to go up. He has been incredible. To me, a top 10 quarterback in the NFL already. Then we got Pharoah Cooper, +2, 65 to a 67. He's been playing well enough to keep guys like Andy Isabella off the field. He's got a decent skill set. This was a good week for South Carolina wide receivers. Pharoah Cooper actually pretty similar body type to Debo Samuel, who we are going to talk about on the Niners side. But anyway, right tackle Justin Murray, he's been a breakout for sure at right tackle. I do think that this Cardinals offense gets rid of the ball so fast, and Kyler is so good at eluding pressure that they're able to hide the fact that he's probably not an ideal starting tackle, but he's been good. He hasn't been a liability for this team, which is more than you can say about a lot of undrafted pickup tackles like that. So then you got Justin Pugh. He's having his best year in about 3 years. +2, 73 to a 75. We noted last week they started him at right tackle. I don't know what was going on there, but anyway, he was not good at right tackle because he's a guard. But they've put him back at guard where he belongs, and he's having a good year. Was great this week against a really good Niners defensive line. So +2, 73 to a 75. He's been a disappointment as far as how much they paid him, but it's good to see him return some of those dividends. And then Jaylen Thompson, this looks like it was a good risk to take. He was a supplemental draft pick. I don't think they used much on him. I think it was a 5th or 6th rounder. But he has effectively been starting here as a free safety, and he's been showing off some range. Good player out of Washington State, so +2, 65 to a 67. And then on the Niners side, we mentioned Debo Samuel. He was close to the star of the week, honestly. A dominant performance at wide receiver, made an unbelievably spectacular catch in this game, but really a do-it-all kind of guy. He's got slot skill set. He's a thick-bodied guy. He's kind of like a running back after the catch, but he's got some deep threat ability as well. So he really stepped up this week when Emmanuel Sanders went down, and they need that to happen. All the guys moving this week is actually a very good encapturing of what this Niners team has done this year. As far as one guy goes down, it's next man up. And for the most of the season, Justin School has been that guy at left tackle, but not a good week. Chandler Jones basically did whatever he wanted to Justin School, so maybe pumping the brakes on Justin School being some total sleeper steal. Definitely a good find, don't get me wrong, but maybe not a starting caliber guy. We'll see, he's still young. And then you got Ross Dwelley, +4, 62 to a 66. George Kittle goes down. You plug in kind of skinny tight end there who can get open on Kyle Shanahan's genius play-action scheme, and he has a decent week here, +4, 62 to a 66. And then Demontre Moore steps in. I believe Ronald Blair is on IR, so they need that rotational edge guy to come in and get those 20 snaps a game and play good run defense, maybe offer a little bit as a pass rusher. And he did that this week, +2, 65 to a 67. They just picked him up recently. And then Julian Taylor, he is kind of a weird body type, 6'5", 280 pounds, built more like a defensive end. But they have actually been playing him as a traditional defensive tackle here, and he's playing pretty well. We're seeing the same thing with a guy in Danico Autry for the Colts. Some of these guys that might be considered too light to play defensive tackle, if you're explosive enough, you can get away with it. If you fire off the ball and you play with good technique and you get leverage at 6'5", 270 pounds, you can get away with it. It doesn't work out for everyone, but Julian Taylor seems to have figured out how to play at that size on the interior. So good for him. And then linebacker Dre Green Lock, he's having a really nice rookie season out of Arkansas State, one of those two. But rangy linebacker, your typical undersized modern linebacker, a good pick for this Niners team that values athletic linebackers. He steps up with Quan Alexander out in this game. So many injuries for this Niners team right now, but they've got guys overcoming them. All right, Bengals at Raiders. Not a lot of movement here. The Bengals offense is just so anemic. It's so bad to watch, but Auden Tate is going to go up +1, 67 to a 68. Hope he's all right. Got a really bad hit to the head in this game, but sounds like he's okay. He's, to me, just a bigger bodied red zone target. I don't think he's been exceptional by any stretch of the imagination, but he's been a steady force for that offense. And then we had Josh Tupou as the Dave Gettleman Award winner. And then for the Raiders here, you don't give them too much credit for beating up on the Bengals, especially on the defensive side, in my opinion. But the offense did struggle as well a little more this week. But Hunter Renfrow continues to be a really nice slot wide receiver here, as we all expected. He was a dominant slot receiver at Clemson. Not a surprise that he's come in and played well in this passing game. And then for the defense, Max Crosby, again, against a miserable Bengals pass rush. The last 2 weeks, they've probably gone up against the worst tackle duos in the league, so I think that's inflating the production of particularly Max Crosby a little bit, but keep in mind, he's like leading the NFL in pressures over the last 2 weeks, so don't want to take anything away from him. Obviously, I'm saying he's hot here, +2, 70 to 72. I see him as probably a guy that's going to be a decent number 2 pass rusher, maybe a number 3. Definitely a good find, but I will say that there's probably Raiders fans out there that think he's like the next Justin Houston as a mid-round pick that's going to come in and be some elite pass rusher. I don't know if I would go that far. Maybe I'm wrong, but just wanted to throw that out there. Then we got Maurice Hurst, +1, 75 to a 76. We mentioned him last week. He continues to play really well. And then Daryl Worley has been a mainstay at corner here for a cornerback trio that's actually playing pretty well there in Oakland. All right, Bears at the Rams. This Bears team is very predictable at this point. They are not surprising really any week. No movement this week. Did think about Roquan Smith. He's playing better lately. Maybe another good week away from that. And then Bilal Nichols, who we've been lowering this year, was a breakout last year. Finally had a good game here. So was it a flash in the pan? Or is he back to being what he was last year? We'll see moving forward. And then for the Rams, Josh Reynolds, most people know who he is. He stepped up pretty big last year after Cooper Kupp got injured. This week it was in Robert Woods and Brandon Cook's stay. But he's been really nice since those injuries have occurred. He's been getting a lot of playing time, and he's been playing really well. So +2, 70 to a 72. He feels like a guy that they might be able to get a decent, second, third round pick from a team desperate for wide receivers. I feel like Reynolds could be a good number 2 for someone. I'm looking at teams like Green Bay, maybe Philadelphia in the offseason. Then the slot guy, Cooper Kupp. That sounds like I'm disrespecting him, just calling him the slot guy. Cooper Kupp's a star wide receiver, but due to these injuries, they've asked him to step outside, and he's showing that he can't really do it. He really struggled this week, struggled last week as well. So stock down a little bit for Cooper Kupp. He's still having a really nice year, but clearly just kind of a target monster, a slot guy. I don't think he's ever a guy that can be a versatile outside threat. But he does do what he does really well, and that is dominate physical play in the slot. And then Bobby Evans, no movement, but we do got to talk about him. He started at right tackle and played better than Rob Havenstein. Now, Havenstein's getting paid a lot of money, but good to see a tackle step up here because Andrew Whitworth is 38 years old and was not good this week either. They're going to need another tackle to step up. So Bobby Evans and Rob Havenstein, you got a little more optimism now seeing Bobby Evans come in here against Leonard Floyd and obviously Khalil Mack and hold his own. So he's not moving because I actually liked him coming out, so his rating was actually pretty high, so it's just one good week. But we'll definitely continue to see what they do with Bobby Evans moving forward. Maybe they kick him to guard or something with Havenstein getting healthy. We'll see. And then Sebastian Joseph Day's having a nice year as a run-defending nose tackle. Troy Hill is red hot right now. He has been good pretty much every week since they traded Marcus Peters, and he's been their true number 2 corner. So that's just looking like a mutually beneficial trade because Marcus Peters has been lights out for Baltimore, and then Troy Hill has just been a better scheme fit for the Rams here as well. And then Taylor Rapp has been playing really nice lately. He's basically come in and he has completely filled John Johnson's role in that strong safety position. John Johnson considered as one of the better strong safeties in the league, and they haven't missed a beat at that position with Taylor Rapp, who does not run the fastest 40. He fell in the draft. There might be upside questions there. He might not be a guy that you want to play at free safety and be a rangy guy, but great instincts, outstanding tackler, just a plug-and-play rookie, was always going to be a good pick for that reason in the second round. So definitely just a good pick, kind of, I guess, luck you could call it, that the big injury they had was John Johnson, and Taylor Rapp is able to plug right in there in that role. So good play from Taylor Rapp. All right, last game of the year, week here. Actually a shorter week as far as the studs and duds is concerned. So for the Chiefs, Rashad Fenton in the slot. He's playing well. They've needed players to step up in that secondary, and he's done so. He was a 6th-round pick out of South Carolina. Just a good pick, a good week for South Carolina guys this week. You got Pharoah Cooper, Debo Samuel, Rashad Fenton. Anyway, Chris Jones is going to go down here. He has been either dominant, like elite in games, or has been non-existent, it feels like. He only had 1 pressure against the Chargers. What the hell is that? He just has been hit or miss all year. I still think he's an outstanding player, but I think a lot of their inconsistencies on defense are because they don't really know what they're getting from Chris Jones on a week-to-week basis. Like, you look at this matchup, you look at the matchup against the Titans with Davis. Like, I know they didn't match him up on Davis the entire time, but you would expect your best defensive player here in Chris Jones to dominate some of these matchups, and he just hasn't. For the Chargers, Michael Schofield +1, 68 to a 69. just been kind of a rock at right guard as far as pass protection is concerned. Feels weird to say a rock about pass protection, but at least the grades for Michael Schofield have been off the charts. And then Scott Kessenberry, he's been playing at a decent level here with Marquise Pouncey out. He finally graded out well this week, but he does kind of pass the eye test as far as just being a capable center. He's a young guy. So +2, 58 to a 60. Phillip Rivers coming down here, 82 to a 79. I don't need to explain it. Anyone that's watched him can tell that he's almost checked out. He's been inaccurate. He's throwing F-it balls. He just looks shot, period. This Chargers team was almost blindsided by how bad Phillip Rivers has been this year. Then Raeshawn Jenkins, he's been kind of typecasted here as a strong safety because he is 6'1", 220. Normally that means you're not going to be as fast, as rangy, but you are going to be better in the box. Well, in Raeshawn Jenkins' case, he kind of lacks those short area run defense and slot coverage skills, but he can line up as a free safety, see the field, and come up and make a play. So he's been playing free safety here and playing it at a high level despite his body cast as a 6'1", 220-pound guy, 70 to a 71. Damian Square's been playing good run defense, something they definitely need, +2, 67 to a 69. And then Casey Hayward, who had a down start to his season, has been a dominant corner the last 3 weeks. So he's going to go up +1, 86 to an 87. And just looking at my notes here, I noticed I forgot the Eagles-Patriots game. So maybe we are going to get to an hour here. We'll see. So we have Ted Karras, the center for the Patriots. He's going down. They desperately need a couple things here on this offensive line. They need David Andrews to magically come back. I heard that he's not necessarily done for the year. He is on IR, so we'll see about that. But then they also need left tackle Marshall Newhouse to get replaced by Isaiah Wynn. Now, he keeps getting talked about as the savior here, Isaiah Wynn. Look, I liked him coming out. He's a really high upside player. But let's not act like he's some lock to fix all of their offensive line problems. For one, the center's been a big issue here. But Isaiah Wynn is a guy that's never played a snap, a real-time snap in the NFL, coming off a torn, what was it, a bicep injury or an ACL. He's also a 6'3" tackle. There's questions there. Like, he's not some lock. I think he could help, but let's not act like this entire offense is going to get fixed by Isaiah Wynn coming back. And a lot of that is because Tom Brady just doesn't have it anymore. He's at a point in his career where he can't make the big-time throws. He's not throwing guys open. The biggest reason I think you're comfortable saying he's regressing is the off-platform throws are just not there. There's been multiple times where he's like just trying to throw the ball away and he can't even get it out of bounds. He's throwing picks here, trying to make throws that he maybe at one point used to be able to. It just isn't there anymore, and he doesn't have the help that he's had. So he's basically a guy out there that can't create offense and doesn't have anyone on this offense creating offense for him. Most would call that a system quarterback. Some would say it's new to Tom Brady. Some would say that's just his career. If he doesn't have help, he's not an elite quarterback. That's a different conversation to be had. Fact of the matter is, this year just hasn't been there for Tom Brady. No one's afraid of the Patriots offense right now, and that's not just because Tom Brady doesn't have any help. Tom Brady doesn't scare anyone right now. It's that simple. And then for the Eagles, Carson Wentz also going to get dinged pretty hard here. -3, 83 to an 80. He just hasn't had the consistency. Wow, hasn't had the consistency this year that you would hope for from Carson Wentz. I thought that from his processor and accuracy standpoint, it was only going to continue to get better. It's taken a big drop off. He's locking in on receivers. He's not getting through the reads the way you would hope. He's not even necessarily got that killer instinct as far as extending plays and making sure that you're attempting throws that are good for first downs on third down. Now he still does the amazing plays, eluding pressure and doing some of that stuff at a very high level, but he's just not all there. And the accuracy in this game was terrible, especially down the stretch. So he's going to come down. This is the first time where I'm really pumping the brakes on Carson Wentz, and I'm willing to say I was wrong about his development and how I projected him this year. He hasn't been that scary this year. And then TJ Edwards gets limited snaps every week, and it's not like the other linebackers have been that bad, but he just looks like he can ball out. He grades out really well in limited time, so plus 163 to a 64. And then the corner, Jalen Mills, he's been a lifesaver for this defense. We talked a lot early in the year about how bad the secondary is, but getting him back and then getting Darby back has been huge for this secondary. This defense has taken a huge step up, and that's why you might have some optimism about this team for the future, at least of this season. But yeah, Jalen Mills having a great year, plus 271 to a 73. All right, that's it. Those are the Week 11 studs and duds. Again, guys, if you made it this far, you might as well hit that like button. Also, consider what I said about a kind donation for the work on the roster if you enjoy it. Again, the PayPal and Patreon links are in the description below. I really appreciate you guys just watching these and showing your support. I love all of you. So cheers, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace.